that powerful brand of football that they do possess, it's going to carry them a long way. The Purple Army will be there en masse, and I think the Fremantle Dockers will want to put on a show. You know where I sit with Fremantle, Steve. I've been chips in with them since round one, and I see no reason to go any other way.
Derby, as you like to call it over there. I like the Victoria Derby. Looking forward to that one at Flemington.
This is a football country. This is a football state.
Well, g'day, my name's Mark Stevens. I'm at Zero Hanger HQ, and welcome to another episode of the Outer Wing, brought to you by TABtouch. Real punters play here. Over on the other side of the country, I'll be joined by the great Digby Beacham, the best journo on the planet. Let's get on with it. Well, g'day, Diggers. Another week and another domination of Freo. How are you feeling over there?
Yeah, looking forward to Friday night, Steve. A very good morning to you. I hope everyone's enjoying what we're producing week upon week here on the Outer Wing. But yeah, the town's abuzz, as you'd expect over here. A Friday night Western Derby, Fremantle and West Coast. And importantly for Fremantle, it's a home game.
Yeah, not much going wrong for Freo at the moment. The only thing going wrong is that I backed them over the line, over to win by 40 points plus. I thought it was a certainty. So what do we make of it? They sort of fiddled around a bit, some less game time for some players, and got it done by under 5 goals.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's a fair call in terms of fiddle. They just feel like they're coasting within games at the moment, Steve-O, and when they need to go, they go. And we've spoken about their propensity to kick goals in a hurry, and they did so against Port Adelaide in that third quarter. They kicked 5 goals in 13 minutes. They trailed by 2 goals at halftime. You thought, oh no, not again. Not off what we saw against GWS a fortnight earlier, but they corrected themselves. They started to find the football at the source, and from there they boasted far too many weapons, as we anticipated they would. I think the whole football world was expecting pretty much a Fremantle landslide victory like yourself. So they've got some work to do. They're by no means the finished article at the moment, Fremantle, but that powerful brand of football that they do possess, it's going to carry them a long way.
So the Derby's come at the right time, do you think? They can just fire up. I mean, they always fire up for West Coast, but the timing's ideal just at this time of year just to refocus.
Couldn't agree more, Steve-O. It has come at the ideal time for them. The juices will be nice and stirred up for both sides, it must be said. But Fremantle at home, there'll be no lethargy, I wouldn't think, from them. They'll be knowing that, West Coast in their past 2 weeks against your boys, the Bulldogs, they were good. They asked a few questions of Brisbane, didn't they, last Saturday night here. So you know what you're going to get from West Coast at the moment. They're playing that really chaotic brand of football. They're in games for a lot longer than what we were seeing, soon after their bye. But Fremantle at home, big crowd. They'll get nearly 60,000 there, you would think. It's going to be a gorgeous Friday here in Perth, early 20s, so it'll be a cool night, but a clear night. The Purple Army will be there en masse, and I think the Fremantle Dockers will want to put on a show.
Now, in our extensive pre-meeting, our catch-up just to plan everything meticulously, Diggers, you put a circle around centre clearance. Is that their only issue for the Purple Army?
I think so. Look, you could argue maybe their finishing in front of goal needs a bit of a tweak, but their centre clearance work when they're really on Fremantle, it's electric, and that's in no small part to the dominance of Luke Jackson, who I think is probably your All-Australian ruckman. There'll be a lot of people saying Max Gawn is, and I can understand where they're coming from. So when they're elite in that area, they're very, very good. But, I think it was 12-2 in favour of Port Adelaide at half-time last week. Therefore, no surprise that Port led by 2 goals at half-time. Fremantle made some adjustments after that. So a little bit of its method. I think a fair degree of it is want. And if they can just get that right, I think all parts of their game are in pretty good order.
Well, a lot of people in Melbourne have got Max Gawn as captain of the All-Australian team. So you've got him obviously on the bench. Diggers, you think that Jackson will take the number 1 ruck role? You can't have a skipper sitting on the pine.
No, you can't, but it's an All-Australian side. They do some funky stuff, those selectors over the years, Steve. I think you would agree with me there. I think Luke Jackson has been the dominant big man in the competition. The Coaches Association votes is normally a pretty good indicator. He's been quite prominent in that. Make no mistake, I'm taking nothing away from Max Gawn. He is something very, very special and to be cherished, to be fair. I would like to think that these 2 former premiership teammates can find a spot in the All-Australian side together. If one's on the bench, so be it. They both deserve recognition.
Do we still have concerns about their goal kicking? When I think of Freo, I don't know why, I just think of yips, long runs of missed shots, flunking it, if you like, when it counts most. Do we still have a bit of a red flag on that?
Well, we have to, Steve-O, and that's not being negative. It's a critique because, a week and a half ago, they were 0-11 at half time. Against Geelong, they didn't take their opportunities in front of goal. Conversely, the old Fremantle, when I say the old Fremantle of years gone by, that would occur, and then it would be like, oh, gosh, what are we doing now? And then it would all fall apart. That's not what's occurring this year. As I said, they've lost 2 games this year. They were poor against GWS. They lost by 21 points, and we know what happened down in Geelong in that first game for Fremantle for the season. Geelong had a spin around the week prior up on the glitter strip. So all in all, there are very few holes in this Fremantle brand at the moment. Centre clearance just needs a little bit of a fine-tune, and maybe they just need to hit the target a little bit more in front of goal, yes.
What about the 3 forwards? Of course, Tracy Voss, giant misses, best year that he's had, 43 snags, his kicks, so certainly career best. He's still got plenty of time to better that, of course, and do a lot better. How do you like the setup with that 3-pronged attack? And the fact is that they've been fit. They haven't had to tamper with it too much, have they?
No, they haven't. And they've combined for 120 goals this year, Steve-O. Josh Tracy's kicked 44. Jai Amos has kicked 43, surpassing his best record. I think it was back in 2023 in his second year when he kicked 41. He's a big, strong man now, and we know that Pat Voss is the third banana, but he's still very effective on his day as well. They complement each other so very well. And they're young. That's the other thing. Jai Amos is still a pup. Josh Tracy's best football is ahead of him. And Pat Voss continues to perform at a level which I think a lot of people are probably a little bit surprised by over there on the East Coast. He's slotted in seamlessly here in Western Australia. And, we go back to the Derby earlier this year, Steve-O. Jai Amos kicked 5, got all 10 coaches' votes. So the young man's in really good nick, and who knows, he should be kicking in excess of 55 goals this year.
Yeah, he's been fantastic, and I reckon Voss would get a game at Essendon at the moment, Diggers. What about Dudley? My little mate, he's even starting to rack up the numbers and get plenty of it.
Yeah, he's been good. He's been really good. His body shape has changed from, what we saw last year. Is he still carrying perhaps a little bit extra? Yeah, that's okay, but he's starting to resemble more of an AFL physique, and I mean that with all due respect, but the pressure he applies, Switkowski, they'll get back Bolton this week, who was managed for that triple A to Adelaide. Oh, you know where I sit with Fremantle, Steve. I've been chips in with them since round 1, and I see no reason to go any other way right here, right now.
Yeah, I'm with you, Diggers. That's the Freo focus for this week. Well, now let's turn to the Eagles, of course, in Derby, or the Derby, as Derby. You like to call it over there. I like the Victoria Derby. Looking forward to that one at Flemington. But the Eagles, they've looked pretty good the last 2 weeks. They're structured. You can see what they're trying to do. Minnie McQualter's stocks are rising. What do you think, and where are they at? Because they could have easily jagged one of those 2 games the past fortnight.
Yeah, absolutely they could have, Steve. And there was one word that Andrew McQualter mentioned post-match on Saturday night that got my attention, and it was scalp. He said, we need a scalp, we want a scalp, we're hunting a scalp. So they didn't get one against the Bulldogs, who continue to do some really good things in light of a pretty significant injury list and some, personnel issues. And they were super, I thought, against Brisbane. Like, they had Brisbane on the ropes, and Brisbane, as you'd expect, found a way. Their class shone through. They kicked the goal on the siren and ended up winning by 20-odd points. But all in all, West Coast were particularly impressive. So their senior players were better. Their young kids are showing some awesome signs, I think. Jobe Shanahan, we've spoken about him ad nauseum. Harley Reid continues to grow before our eyes. They won't have Liam Baker this week. We'll talk about that in a second. But for mine, Steve-O, and I get it, the win-loss record is a great indicator of where you're at, and it doesn't lie. But for mine, I think they're better than a 4-win side. Now, hopefully they can get another win or 2 to round out their year. Have they improved? Absolutely they have. They won 1 game last year. There's still some glaring flaws in the way they go about it, and they've copped some shellackings this season. But as we've said previously here, Steve, they're out the other side for mine. And it's been a very gloomy run for a long period of time, far too long for a club of this standing. But I think there's some bright times ahead for West Coast.
Yeah, I'm a big believer you can forget how to win. I think West Coast have forgotten that. They could have seized their moment against the Dogs and again on the weekend. And is there a feeling, I'm just watching for are they too content with these competitive losses? Wow, we tried hard, we got close. I think that has to end, Diggers. They need to start winning these games.
Yeah, I'm not sure that applies to them, Steve. I think they're quite disappointed when they're not getting the job done. They're continually putting themselves in the frame, so that's a good thing. You know, they did so against Collingwood and they didn't win. You know, they did so against North Melbourne, a game, you know, which was pretty much a 50-50 contest and they didn't win, and we know what's happened the past 2 weeks. So they're hurting when they're not able to finish off the deal, and there's a hunger there, there's an impatience there, which is a good thing. So you just have to keep fronting up. It's the Geelong mantra, isn't it? You just keep fronting up year upon year upon year, and soon the door opens and then hopefully the wins flow. And for Geelong, you know, they've put themselves in the frame, haven't they, to try to win premierships, and we saw what happened. I think it was 22, something like that. So all in all, I think West Coast aren't satisfied with these honourable losses, but they're continuing to grow, which is encouraging.
Yeah, and you mentioned Liam Baker a few minutes ago. I mean, the match committee would be getting a little bit frustrated. I mean, he's a club leader. They don't need him out suspended.
No, they do not. You know, and we know what happened earlier this year. He missed games because of suspension. And that bump on Rayner, it was unnecessary. It was a very, very fine margin, as these head-high bumps so often are. Unfortunately, Cam was okay, but Liam Baker is not the Liam Baker we saw in his first season at West Coast. When he won the John Worsfold medal, he was elevated to the co-captaincy. He has to be better. He has to be available. He's brave, and I think his skills are underrated. But he needs to find more of the football, and when he finds the football, it needs to be in areas of the ground where he can do some damage.
And Jakey Waterman, he's kicked 5, his first 5-goal haul in 38 games. So as good as he is, it's been a while since he bagged one. If he kicked straight, he certainly would have had a few more bags, Diggers. But if you throw him and Harley Reid in at their best, you know, could they get within 4 goals?
Well, they might. Look, Jake, it was great to see Jake finish in front of goal last week. He's got 40 goals for the year, but he's also got 43 behind, Steve-O. So he's had 83 scoring shots.
He could have won the Coleman.
And there's been other shots.
Like, imagine he could have won the Coleman in a side in the bottom 4 or 5.
Correct. Yeah. So he's had a really good year. He's been available all year. We know that last year his year was cut short by injury, but he's been super this year. Harley Reid's been outstanding. So look, they'll need to play well, those players, and you know Shanahan will have to stand up again, and it won't be easy against this Fremantle defence. But it starts in the centre. You know, Bailey Williams, who signed that big contract extension last night, WA time, he's going to have to do a really good job. Who I think against is the number 1 ruckman in the competition, that being Luke Jackson.
And what you make of the Bailey Williams extension? It's a long one, the 6 years. It's pretty generous. I mean, if you'd said that 18 months ago or even 12 months ago, you'd say, wow, what are you smoking? But it's a pretty good deal.
It is, Steve-O. And look, to be fair, you could have said it in round 1. Like Matt Flynn was ahead of him earlier this year. Bailey Williams was available for selection, and Matt Flynn started the first couple of games of the year, and then Bailey was recalled and has gone past Matt Flynn like he's not only standing still, he's in reverse. 6 years, it's a long time. It's a really significant commitment to Bailey. Conversely, Steve-O, if he does go back to Victoria, and you've got a young midfield here in West Coast, and that features obviously Harley Reid, and there's a few others in there who we think, you know, Dersma, hopefully Elijah Hewitt, you know, flourishes as a former first rounder. If you lose a Bailey Williams, you have to go back to Matt Flynn or try to bed down a new big man in that centre square. Is that going to stall the progress of your midfield? Or do you commit to Bailey Williams now, knowing that in 3 or 4 years' time, hopefully, Cooper Duff-Tytler assumes that mantle? He's been aided by the new ruck rules, Bailey. He's an athletic big man. His ruck work's good. His tap work's sound. Look, basically, well done to him and his management for getting 6 years. If he's on the open market, he probably gets 5 and a big contract over there on the East Coast. Yeah,
it's amazing when you think about it. I'm not sure there'd be a player in the comp or in recent memory whose price and term length of contract has gone up, as you said, since round 1. So in a matter of, say, 4 months, He's gone from nothing basically to
Yep.
a mega deal. You'd have to speculate on a 6 year. It'd have to be at least 800 a year. So we're looking at a $5 million bonus.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, when you're running around in the waffle early in the season and Matt Flynn's doing the ruck work and you're out of contract, you're thinking, well, what does my future look like? I'm mid-20s. I should be entering my prime. As you said, now he's, looking at cashing a $5 million check over the next 6 seasons and hopefully part of a West Coast resurgence.
Yeah, it's good news for the Eagles. So that's West Coast this week.
Could a mullet with tightly tapered sides reduce wind resistance, allowing for faster acceleration off the mark? Now that's something to think about. What are you really gambling with?
Now, Diggers, let's go to the news segment. On the high rating 6 points here Monday morning, I mentioned that there's support in high places for a team in WA, a third team. The PM, Anthony Albanese, is backing in the Northern Territory. I'm not so sure about that. I know there is support where it counts. Here in Melbourne, as I said, AFL House, high places for a third team in Perth. What's the vibe over there?
Well, we'd love it because it would mean we're guaranteed to get a game or 2 games here in Perth or in WA every weekend, and we are a football mad state, so we can't get enough of that. Look, there's probably 2 regions where you could go, Steve. You could go to the Northern Belt, the Northern Corridor, up to an area called Joondalup. I'm not sure if all of your viewers over there are all that familiar with Joondalup. It's a northern suburb. It's about 30 k's north of the CBD, 25 to 30 k, only a 25-minute drive. West Perth ventured from their inner city Leederville Oval base in the end of 93 and went up there, and it's just expanded. It's a huge growth area here in WA. It's got a strong English presence. A lot of immigrants who've come over from England have based themselves there, but it is, it's a strong Australian rules football place, and the location there would allow you to play games at Optus Stadium. The other venue, which you have seen, Steve-O, is Hands Oval there in the southwest in Bunbury. So Bunbury's about just under 2 hours southwest, naturally, of Perth. And Hands Oval's had around, I think it was about $20 million on a redevelopment, and then when there was interest from the AFL and Fremantle and North Melbourne to play games there was another $5 million injected in to bring it up to AFL standards. So about $25 million. You can get about 12 or 13,000 in there. Now that South Bunbury is South Bunbury's home ground, and the Southwest has produced some wonderful players, like players who are household names over there in Victoria. So it's a really, really strong football heartland as well. I'm not sure what the logistics would be there, though, Steve. If you played there, do you get to play at Optus Stadium? Are you luring players across from the East Coast to be playing in front of 12 or 13,000? I know some would say that's what happens in Western Sydney, but this is different here because this is football. This is a football country. This is a football state. And I think if you've got Optus Stadium there, a world-class stadium, you need to be playing football games there if you have 3 teams in WA.
No doubt. I think they'd have to upgrade the stadium down south, probably play some smaller games there, 3, and then key games, the big ones, obviously, at the Perth Stadium, which is an absolute ripper and a great brewery and bar next door. Of course, it used to be a golf course, Diggers. So with you, this is your list. So give us who's your favourite, one or 2? Would you have Joondalup ahead of down on the south coast?
I'd have the Southwest ahead of Joondalup, Steve-O, because it's a growing area. You're an hour south of Mandurah, which is only an hour away from Perth. Then you get down into Busselton, Margaret River, and it's as I said, there's a lot of interest in Australian rules football down that way. Bunbury's is a city. Is it as big as Geelong? Absolutely, it is not. No way, it's not. It's not as big as Ballarat. It's not as big as Bendigo, but it's still big enough and it's close enough to Perth. There's a new freeway there, the highway. You can get up and back quite easily. So I would say that Bunbury and the Southwest would have its nose ahead of Joondalup.
Okay, I love it, Diggers. What about some bets for this week for TABtouch? Real punters play here. Gamble responsibly, of course.
Yeah, there's a couple here, Steve-O, that I'll throw out. I think Fremantle win by 5+ goals. So I'll go Fremantle in a same-game multi to win by 30 points or more, and also the game total to be over 170.5 on Friday night. As I said, the forecast is clear. We should get a nice fast deck. That's paying $2.45 with TABtouch. I'll also do a Harley Reid same game multi here, Steve-O, and that is for Harley to have 20 plus possessions, Harley to kick 1 goal, and also Harley to kick at least 1 behind. He's kicked 23 behinds this year, and I think you've mentioned sometimes this year the radar hasn't been as efficient as it should be. If all 3 get up, that's paying $4.50 with TABtouch, and I think that's not a bad play.
I like it, Diggers. I'll have to replay and rewatch that. It's a bit complicated for me, but I'll put that down. I like it. And thanks for joining us again, Diggers. And thanks to our loyal audience here on the Outer Wing. We'll be back soon for TABtouch.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.